So the year is 1973, and here I am with one of the most beautiful women to have ever walked this earth, my grandma. I spent a lot of time with her when I was growing up, and one of my favorite things to do was to watch her get ready. She would sit at her vanity, she'd put moisturizer on her skin. Of course, her hair was in curlers. She'd get her liquid foundation on, then she'd bring out her mascara, her blue eyeshadow, because it was the 70s, her bright red lipstick, and then my favorite part is when she got her gold compact out and would take it and put her powder on her skin. And then finally, she would take out her curlers and get a really fine tooth comb and tease her hair in an amazing beehive. And last but not least, she would take a can of hairspray and just douse her hair with this fine mist. And she would transform as she emerged from this mist of hairspray. She transformed from what I knew was a beautiful woman to a goddess in my eyes. So fast forward a couple decades. We don't have to talk about how many, but a couple decades. And I found out that the mascara she was using most likely had mercury in it as a preservative, and that her red lipstick probably contained lead, even that there is no safe level of lead. Her foundation most likely had toxic chemicals in the ingredients, and that hairspray probably contained vinyl chloride, which is a chemical in plastics. And vinyl chloride is a potent liver carcinogen. And workers who were at plants that made vinyl chloride, there were several workers whose fingers and their bones dissolved because of the toxicity of this chemical. So the personal care products industry is a $6 billion industry. And most of us use personal care products each day, whether it's shampoo or deodorant or foundation, without really giving it a second thought and not really thinking about the chemicals or what comes into our skin. Women use an average of 12 personal care products a day. And just so you know, men, and we've done our own research, men do use personal care products, toothpaste, deodorant, shaving cream, shampoo, you name it. And so this means that the average woman is exposed to 168 unique ingredients each day. And for the average man, that's 85 specific ingredients. Now, what's so disturbing is that most of these ingredients have never been publicly assessed for safety. So that's why about 10 years ago, Environmental Working Group decided that we really needed to get to the bottom of this. So we created a database called Skin Deep, where we looked at more than 60,000 products and looked at those ingredients that were listed on the back of the label. Then we took a whole bunch of scientific databases and looked at what was in the literature and tried to make an assessment about those chemicals. And here's a little bit about what we found. Oop, I went the wrong way. Oh, no, it's just going slowly. 34% of the products contained chemicals that were associated with cancer. And 45% contained chemicals that were associated with reproductive toxicity or developmental toxicity. And 60%, fully 60% of the products on the market had chemicals, or the products in our database that we analyzed, had estrogenic chemicals, basically synthetic chemicals that mimic the hormone estrogen. So at EWG, we've been really interested not just in the pollution of our air and our water, but also the pollution in people's bodies. In 2004, we did a landmark study where we found out that industrial chemical pollution begins in the womb. We looked at the umbilical cord blood of newborn babies, and we found PCBs and DDT, chemicals that have been banned 30 years ago. We also found lead and mercury, and we also found components that are associated with cosmetic ingredients, parabens, phthalates, and synthetic musks. So in 2008, we decided we should really take a close look at teen girls who use an average of 17 different personal care products a day. So we tested 20 teens for 25 different cosmetic ingredients. and we found 16 chemicals. But these weren't just any regular chemicals. We found plasticizers, we found preservatives, we found antimicrobial agents, fragrances, and all 16 of these chemicals altered hormone levels. Now, scientific research is saying that these low-dose exposures to chronic synthetic hormones can really affect our systems. Specifically, let's talk about what we find in phthalates and parabens. These are two classes of chemicals that are often in personal care products. Phthalates are used as a plasticizer, and they've been shown, because of this estrogenic quality, to cause damage in sperm in men. They alter sex hormones in men and boys, and also can affect the thyroid hormone. We've also seen that parabens that are used as a preservative in moistures in shampoo, they also have this estrogenic effect. We've also found that in the EU, they've actually banned some parabens. And in our assessment of our Skin Deep database, there were 18,000 different products that contained parabens. So why should we care? This is a startling trend that we are seeing. And many scientists think that it is actually attributed to the synthetic chemicals that we are exposing ourselves and our children to each day. The average age of puberty, when a girl gets her period in 1860, was 16 and a half years. Today, it's 10 and a half. And since 1920, we've seen a 5-year decline. So what does it mean to have early onset of puberty? Well, we're now seeing a new normal, where it is considered normal for 6-year-old girls to show the first sign of puberty, and that's breast buds. And we're seeing this in more than 10% of Caucasian girls. For African American girls, it's normal to see it at the age of 6. It's 7 for Caucasian girls and 6 for African American girls. Fully 25% of African American girls are experiencing puberty beginning at the age of 6. So there are all kinds of health effects associated with early onset of puberty. Some of them are obvious: depression, unwanted sexual attention, increased risk of risky behavior. Also, though, diabetes, obesity, and the more estrogen that you're exposed to means that there could be an increased risk of breast cancer. And now 1 in 8 women will experience breast cancer in their lifetime. There is not a single person in this room or a single person watching online who has not been affected by this disease. And when it comes to cancer, there is a growing awareness that these toxic synthetic chemicals that we're exposed to in our consumer products may affect all kinds of different types of health outcomes that we're experiencing. And in fact, in 2010, President Obama's Cancer Commission found the following: the percentage of cancers that are caused by toxic chemicals are grossly underestimated, and that Americans face grievous harm from chemicals that are largely unregulated in our food, in our air, and our water. So how do we get here? Well, we hear so much about overregulation when it comes to the government, right? Government's in every aspect of your life, but not when it comes to cosmetics that are sold. In fact, there is virtually no authority for the FDA to regulate the chemicals that are in our cosmetics. In 1938, Congress passed the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act. There are 343 and a half pages. I teach a class at Georgetown Law School about the FDA. 343 pages on food and drug safety, and a page and a half on cosmetic safety. Now, what's interesting is the reason that cosmetics were included in 1938 is because of a landmark case, highly publicized. It was called the Lash Lure case. And basically what happened is a woman bought mascara and she went blind. She went blind because rat poison was used in the preservative for her mascara. Congress has not updated this legislation since 1938. What does this mean? This means that the Food and Drug Administration does not require testing of cosmetic ingredients that go in the market. It has no approval authority, no review authority, and this is really hard for most consumers to believe, it can't actually recall products when they go on the market. So what this means is that companies decide what is safe for all of us. In fact, there is a panel called the Cosmetic Ingredients Review Panel. And this is an industry body, and it looks at all of the ingredients, and it tells FDA what is safe. This started in the 1970s, and since it was created, 11 chemicals have been restricted for use in the United States. On the other hand, in the EU, which has a much stronger cosmetic protection program, they've restricted 1,100 different chemicals. And many of those chemicals are in products that we use every day here in the United States. Okay, so thanks a lot, Heather. Really appreciate that. Real uplifting talk. But there is hope. I promise there's hope. That's what Revitalize is all about. And the hope is that consumers are starting to connect the dots. They understand that what products they buy and what they wear can really impact their health and their lifestyle. And they're also saying to companies, you know what? This is not the deal. When I buy a lotion, I don't expect for parts of that to go into my newborn baby's body or my teenager's body or my body. Not okay. And even if you can't prove that there's a causal link of cancer or some type of health effect, I don't want it there. Enough is enough. So we're seeing that the market is really changing. Here is a New York Times article from January, earlier this year, where Johnson & Johnson has gotten rid of formaldehyde releasers in baby shampoo. Woohoo! That it is a really big news. And they've also made a commitment to pull other toxic chemicals of concern out of their products. We're seeing other big brands like Procter & Gamble and other huge houses really focusing on this issue. No more dibutyl phthalate in nail polish. The industry has really moved after a lot of focus on this chemical of concern. And in sunscreens, which is another tool that EWG provides consumers, we've seen a really significant reduction in the use of oxybenzone, which is also an endocrine disruptor. And we've seen more products on the market that provide this broad spectrum UVA, UVB protection, as well as vitamin A being removed, which, as wonderful as a vitamin sounds, when vitamin A is in sunscreen, it can actually increase the possibility of skin lesions. So we've really seen the market respond to companies. And of course, with new markets, there are new brands. And there are many brands that are represented here at mindbodygreen. So there's really a huge drive for a new safe cosmetics market. Everyone I've talked to, all these entrepreneurs are telling me it's just really growing exponentially as more and more consumers are understanding the impacts. So when we have consumers moving and we have companies moving, there's good news, because that means this last peg of the stool, Capitol Hill, we're actually seeing a lot of interest. So there's a proposal and several proposals floating around the Hill right now that would reform this 1938 law that would require that ingredients that are used in cosmetics be proven safe for children before they go on the market. Because if they're safe for children, they'll be safe for all of us. It also requires labeling of all ingredients and would give FDA that authority to pull back products of concern. So we're seeing movement. So what does this mean? What can you do? Well, so I'm a native of Tennessee, so I have to do a shout out to the Lady Vols, big basketball fan. But this actually comes from a quote from my 7th grade civics teacher. And he said, democracy is not a spectator sport. You have to get in the game. So I encourage you to call your members of Congress, call your local politicians and say, we deserve safe cosmetics. We deserve non-toxic personal care products. We need you to stand up and reform our laws and regulation, because we can only move the market so much. Next, skip the most toxic ingredients. And we have terrific resources at EWG, so you can try to figure out, okay, what's the difference between PEG and Cedaref and DMD, hydantoin? It's really difficult to expect each consumer to be their own little environmental protection agency or own little FDA. But while we're waiting for the systemic change, we do have these tools for you. Get to know your products. Skin Deep is a great resource. Read your labels. Really think and be mindful about the products you're buying and what chemicals you're bringing into your home and exposing your family to. And finally, we have a great app. We've had 250,000 downloads of our Skin Deep app, which you can actually use at the point of sale. So you can take it with you and have these guidance when you're trying to really navigate the morass of options you have when it comes to personal care products. So finally, these are the two biggest reasons I do this work. My daughters, Katie and Susan. And my hope is that if they decide to be moms, and if I'm ever a grandmother, that their kids can watch me get ready for a big night out, and that they'll have a memory of a ritual that celebrates health and wellness and beauty and is safe and non-toxic. Thank you.